All right, how's everybody doing? Welcome back to You Don't Know Ball, episode 32. Here in the studio by myself today. No guests, no worries. We still got a fun show for you guys. Still got Hunter behind the camera. I'm ready, man. We're going to have a lot of fun. So today, what we got in order for you guys is we're going to just go over some headlines right now, stuff that's trending. And then we're going to kind of just scroll through some mock drafts. Just, and not even just that. We're also just, as we do that, we're also going to give you guys kind of our favorite draft hot takes, favorite landing spots for people, things that could happen. A whole lot of fun, a whole lot of crazy stuff. So we're just going to, it's that time of the year, draft season. We're all excited for the draft. It's just constant, we're itching to just talk the draft. Let's just do it. Let's just have fun. Let's just talk about it constantly. That's what we got. That's what everyone wants to do, man. So start off. The first headline we have today that me and Hunter really want to talk about is the Texans. Because the Texans might be trading out of their second overall pick. And obviously, the question then becomes, what does that entail? Who would be trading for this pick? Who would the Texans be potentially taking? Those are the two biggest questions. But I think I'm going to start with who would even possibly be thinking of moving up and taking this pick? So obviously, we know it could be a few teams. If I look here, so hold on, let me pull up my little. Houston, I'm thinking teams that are likely that could trade up. It could be the Colts. Right? It definitely could be the Raiders. It could be the Falcons. That would be kind of a stretch, but possibly. Could be the Titans. Very possible. And obviously, it gets to be a little more of a stretch the further down we go, but there's a lot of teams that could be willing to trade up. And then, I think, if I'm looking at this, and this is just what I think, you tell me what you think next year, Hunter, but if I'm looking at it, I'm thinking the teams that are most likely to shoot up would have to be, but that's also what makes interesting is I was going to say Indianapolis, but then I'm sitting here and I'm thinking if Indy shot up, almost is kind of would they be overdoing it almost because I don't know if you could sit here at 4, the team that trades up, unless you know for sure you're going to take your guy, but I don't know because Indy's tough. I think that the teams that I think would really be looking to shoot up is probably going to be Vegas. And this sounds crazy. It does, but I feel like it's so possible. If Detroit loves someone and they're sitting there and they're thinking this could be, especially if their guy falls from the number 1 overall to number 2. That's the thing is this might be a move. Do you think it's going to happen on draft day? Do you think it could happen beforehand? I've just been seeing this recently, and there's a lot of things that could happen with it.
I think anything with the Texans is going to happen draft day, because I could, like you mentioned, the Lions possibly going up. My thing is I don't think the Colts are going to move because I think the Colts would have already moved if they're going to move. I think they're comfortable taking the person that falls at 4. And also a big thing is if the Texans don't trade out, let's just say they don't trade out and they take Will Anderson at 2. I mean, whoever trades in front of them is going to get Stroud or Richardson. So then they have their pick of Levis or Richardson and Stroud. So they're getting a top 3 quarterback in the draft sitting at 4 without giving up any draft capital if the Texans decide to just take Will Anderson. I actually feel like they're more likely to do that than trade out. But if they were to trade out, the Titans to me are the number 1 team, in my opinion, that would trade everything they can to move up, because you can, every time there's been a trade up discussion, the Titans have been mentioned, and that they're starting their rebuild because Tannehill's not the guy. Henry's getting old. They have a new GM in there. They have to start it somehow. Do I think they should take a quarterback this early into the rebuild? No, I think they should probably wait a year or two, get a tackle, but I think the Texans will stay put, but if any team is going to make an offer to actually make the Texans move out, I think anything that the Titans offer would have to be over the top because Vegas could offer that, for cheaper.
Yeah, that is very true. All very good points. And see, the thing is, because I didn't really mention it, I knew it, but I haven't even considering it really because it sounds so ludicrous at the moment, but it's if the Texans don't take the QB at number 2 and they don't even trade it either and they just take Will Anderson, it was who we think they would be going with. I don't see anything wrong with that either because I'll say it like this, and you'll know what I mean. If this was a franchise and I'm playing Madden and I'm knowing next year I got Caleb Williams and Drake May coming out, I get it. You're not in any rush to get the QB necessarily now, especially because they know they're not going to win anything next year. It's not like the QB is going to be the the big move right off the bat. It's going to be the biggest of the rebuild, but it's not the big move that's going to push them into the stratosphere next year. The big move is going to be when they put it all together. They haven't put it all together, guys. It's not even close. So this would be one of those times, and I would say build the trenches. Could be that perfect build the trench opportunity, and a lot of people look at it like it's not the right move, but I would have no problem with it if it's what they did.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, the hit rate on quarterbacks, like, obviously the earlier you take a guy in the first round, the higher their hit rate is, but technically, like, if you want to look at it, like, just hitting on a quarterback, like, that's going to be a star, it's low, even in the first round. So, say Levis falls to 12, they can take him. Okay, the way I look at it too is they have the draft capital next year that if they truly want to move up and those guys aren't set on Caleb Williams because they don't need a quarterback, or two, the Texans offer them something ridiculous because I think they still have another first from the Watson trade.
They do.
Yeah, so like if they use their 2 firsts that year to move up and then maybe a first after that just to get their guy, you have Levis doesn't work out, you could trade him. There's going to be some team
like a Trey Lance type of situation.
Yes, exactly. So, I think that could be a play for them is to get Levis at 12.
No, yeah, and it's just because the more I think about this, truly, when I first heard this and that we're thinking about taking quarterback, I'm kind of like, what are they possibly thinking? I was on that train, like, what's going on here? But even the more we talk about it now, with a guy like Willie A, like with a guy like Will, you're getting basically, as long as he stays healthy, like a perennial All-Pro, and like you said, it's like I might be getting a maybe like a future Pro Bowler or All-Pro, maybe with then a QB after that, but you're not very sure. And it's like, What's the point in taking it when this is the pick that you have to hit on? Like this is the one you really got to hit on.
Right. And are you all that confident that team is going to help him succeed at this point? That's a big part, is like you are throwing that quarterback into the fire. And similar to the Titans, they like, because when I look at the Texans the last 2 years, they haven't built anything.
No.
Like the last 2 years have been a wash to me. So it's like similar to kind of like the Titans situation where it's like, are you throwing a quarterback in the mix too early? And that's why Levis at 12, I feel like is a better option than taking that guy at 2, because if he crashes and burns, take Caleb Williams next year and you're still in year 2 of your rebuild.
No, I mean, and it's honestly a way better option. And again, do I think this is going to happen? Absolutely not. But again, it's fun draft day, and we're just throwing out random things. So hey, let's throw out random things. If some way, somehow, a bunch of front offices aren't feeling Anthony Richardson, and he falls down to right there, you know what I mean? If he falls down to you at 12, you got to. I mean, that seems so unlikely at this point. It just really does. But like, if it happens, it happens, and that would be like, I feel like almost the prime situation for them.
Okay, here's an interesting hypothetical, because I think doing some hypotheticals for the draft, because there's been so much like this person's gonna go here. This was so like, even though this year it feels random, but I feel like a lot of people are slotting certain players to teams. Okay, so say Anthony Richardson falls to 12, okay, and you don't love him. Say you have the option of Richardson and Levis at 12. Do you think there's any chance that the Ravens could trade up to take an Anthony Richardson and move on from Lamar? Because if you move up, I know this is crazy. Like, I probably sound very ignorant.
No, this is.
But think about it. Like, if you truly don't want to pay Lamar, and I know the OBJ sign signals that Lamar is coming back, and I'm not saying I wouldn't re-sign Lamar, but if you could move up and get 2 draft picks for Lamar, you're kind of loading up for the year after, and you have a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract that you took at 12. You took at 12.
Top 10.
Right, so like the money is not crazy. So it's just like you look at it and like that's what you want to win on a rookie contract, and like that would be an option to do so.
I was going to say, so 2 things to that point, because you were killing it on both things. Because it also led me to another piece of news I just saw recently. I guess Lamar's been telling the Ravens, like, if you want me back, you need to find a way to land D-Hop. You know, like literally get D-Hop on this roster, and you got a really good shot to get me back here. But again, if you're the Ravens and you don't make that happen, and you're like, hey, look, well, I know what Lamar wants now for sure. I got to get him out of here. That sounds like a very ideal move, because obviously, if you're a Ravens fan, there is not going to be. They understand this, right? I'm talking to Ravens fan right now directly. They know there's no direct patching this the day of. Like, even if you get a Rich and things look really good that day, it's not going to feel any better. It's not going to feel better than when you had Lamar. Like, I get that. There's no question about it. But at least it seems like best case scenario, if y'all lose Lamar, So hey, we were spitting right here. Like this
Yeah.
was something that's kind of crazy. I didn't think about this at all till you said it, but
It's just like that's just like a crazy draft day hypothetical. Like I feel like there's a possibility. The possibility is like maybe 5%, maybe less. But like if you're the Ravens, you have to listen like to that at least. But also another thing I was gonna say, what is the latest pick that you think Levis slides to? Because I could see him sliding, even though I think the Levis hype train is picking up again.
see, here's what I'll say, bro. Here's what I'll say. I think Peyton Manning did give him a lot of gas when he said he liked him a lot.
Yeah.
But again, I've said that there's been so many QBs recently. I don't know. I don't even know if I could think of any off the top of my head. But if I do, as I'm saying this, or as I'm giving my spiel in the future, I'll obviously just stop and I'll say it. But where guys have been really good in the pros, that'll be like, this guy's the truth, and they don't pan out, or this guy's he's the alpha, they don't pan out for shit. Like just because you get a Hall of Fame quarterback's recognition and stamp of approval, that's awesome. It obviously gives you a much better chance to be successful, but it doesn't guarantee anything. So that's why I take all this with a grain of salt. Obviously, he likes his skill set a lot, which means a lot, which is very good. It bodes well for him. But I would say so where I could see him falling. I think, again, this is me personally. I have never, this could sound ignorant in the future, but again, you know me, I'm an honest guy. Of all the QBs in this year's class that are the big guys, the round one guys, I don't really like Will Levis as much as anyone else. And I think that Will Levis could be the guy that very easily we look back on and we're like, yeah, like he had the tools, but there's a lot of things that where it kind of showed it wasn't going to work. So I could very easily see him. I mean, he could slip out the first round, like for sure. I feel like, and I don't like where everyone's like, that's not possible. I'm going to use myself last year as an example, where it's kind of like where I look back myself when I was being dumb last year, I didn't realize where I was for sure. I was so sold. Malik Willis is going to be late first round at least. He's going to be he's a really good talented quarterback, and the hype was there. We all thought Malik was going round 1, round 2. I don't want to say I could see him being the same because I don't think he's going to fall that far.
Okay,
but I could see it where it's like, I can see for sure the media, everybody's like, well, Will Levis ended day 1. Still not, his name hasn't been called. We'll be sitting here tomorrow waiting to see who picks him first. I could totally see that. Like,
do you think he has a higher chance of falling or Richardson?
Personally, I think him. Because again, we say like the floor with A. Rich is kind of like, I at least have a really talented athletic guy.
I think he has a higher chance of, honestly, like I think Will Levis would fall more. But I honestly think Anthony Richardson has a higher chance of falling more. Because I don't see Will Levis making it past the Vikings in the first round if he falls that far.
That is a good point, though. That's probably yes. I would, now that you said it, though, because that's actually kind of like the team that I missed looking through here. Like, yeah.
Because I think when it gets to those late rounds, it's Bucks and Vikings.
Well, that's the thing is, though. It's like if he falls past that, though, then I don't know. I have no question he will fall to the second round. Yeah. There's just no other viable situation here. Literally, not at all. Unless, and again, they would never do this. It'd be the dumbest pick ever, and I would kick their ass for it. Unless the Saints were like, well, we pick Will up here and let him sit behind Derek for 3-4 years. And that's just no. Please don't do that shit. No, don't Jordan Love him. So. You know what I mean? Other than that, yeah, it's like, and that would be far-fetched as hell. So it's like, that's the only thing that makes any sense, though. It's not the Chiefs or the Eagles or anyone's going to take him.
Yeah, no, I don't think
the Bengals or the Bills.
That would be weird. You know what? I mean, I don't know if it would be like the best, but
no, because maybe the Giants pull the same. Maybe the Giants pull Jordan Love on him, but there would be no point. They just re-signed Daniel Jones. But
bro, that's what I was thinking. Like the Giants getting Anthony Richardson.
No, see that?
I had this thought today.
That would be kind of crazy. So I just feel like they're in a position where they kind of have to hit on this.
Yeah,
pick.
They do. It's because they have so many holes in the roster, and they extended Daniel Jones. But I actually saw this today about Stroud. So you know how like the Stroud hype train was like pretty big a couple weeks ago, and it's been kind of like trailing off.
Right.
So I saw something. I forget who put it out, but it was like a reputable source. And they basically said like, Stroud committed to go to like the the Manning like passing like camp or whatever, and the night before he was supposed to go, he like ghosted them and never showed up. So I guess like that kind of made its way around, and like teams were kind of like the tweet basically said like teams heard about that and got a little bit wary of Stroud.
When was he supposed to do this camp?
I don't know. I remember. Let me try to look it up, but like. It's crazy because like you said, like Manning gave like Levis like his stamp of approval, kind of, and it's like Peyton Manning's word goes a long way in the NFL.
Oh,
So
yeah.
like that, if you do that, like teams are gonna ask about that.
No, yeah, like, well, and again, it's a little spoiler if you're watching this before you're watching the player comps video we're gonna make later and post on the YouTube and stuff like that. But I think, because again, it's to that point where and like you're saying, everything where the hype is kind of dying off. I think, and at least from the way I view it, with CJ, he very much is one of those guys, because like one of his comps, his hybrid comps, is Geno Smith, where it's like we've seen Geno. If CJ goes to the wrong situation, like how Geno did initially, that's what I think CJ will look like. But if you get CJ in the right system right off the bat, like we see how Geno is now, you could get that version of CJ. That's why I think it's like the same exact thing, where CJ has a lot of good things about him, but he's not great enough that if you put him into a bad situation, he's going to be able to figure his way around that. It's just not that type of talent the way I see it.
Yeah, so this is from Brady Quinn. It says CJ Stroud made a commitment to the Manning Passing Academy, but the night before he ghosted them and didn't show up. When you do that, that's going to set up alarms for people. So that's what Stroud said. And someone said Connor Allen, NFL. I don't know who he is. He's a betting manager, so this don't really mean much. But apparently Stroud bombed the S2 test, and he ghosted the Manning Academy. And then he said hard to coach. I don't know if that's true or not, but it does seem like, for some reason or not, like people are kind of trashing on Stroud. Now, whether like teams are doing that on purpose to like try to get him to fall, that could be something. But like I'm not seeing those like crazy knocks on like other quarterbacks. I don't know if they don't exist or like what, but it's like Levis to me is the most like knockable quarterback in the draft. And he doesn't get that.
For sure.
Because like from what I heard, he didn't bomb his draft interviews, but I heard he didn't do well.
No, I heard that. No, I heard he did a lot of the, it just, and here's what I think is interesting. This is a good little topic right here. A lot of people would say the term like, it just wasn't the right fit. I heard that a lot. Like, well, it just wasn't the right fit. What I think is, what does that really mean? What, he's just not the right fit. Like, what does that really mean? To me, how that comes across is I didn't view him like emotionally mature enough to be the guy. Like, that's how I view it. Because anything else, what does that mean? If you interviewed him and you already have watched the film, you already know what position he plays. Those two things are already checked out. So if you liked him enough to interview him and then you potentially put him on the roster, you already knew all that about him. But then when you get him in the room, what does the not right fit mean? Right? It has to be something with personality.
It's just like, I feel like it's got to be something too, like a coaching fit, like what you want out of your quarterback. You know?
No, exactly. That's why it's like when you get in the room with him, at the least, a lot of people went, you really didn't know a lot of things I thought you knew, kind of shit, which is alarming.
So another thing, what I was seeing with like Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, and then we can move on to a different topic, is when these coaches were getting them into these interviews and like asking them certain things, like they were just saying like Young seemed a lot more pro ready in like the concepts and like what he ran and like what he can run. So it just seemed like he was a lot more knowledgeable in the game.
No, well, and like I've been saying, that's why I think Bryce has been my guy so long.
Yeah.
And it translates. When I say like Bryce is a magician, Bryce always sees it coming, he's always avoiding the sack. It's not because he's just a magician. It's because he sees all the things everyone else doesn't see. He goes, you think you're going to be able to blitz me off the slot corner? Like, bet, bring it. I'm not even going to show you that. He's just going to quietly pick it up. And right when you're about to be in his shoulder, he's going to step up because he knows you're going to be there. Yeah. That is the difference.
Yeah.
People that make magician plays and shit, it's just knowing when to make the right play.
Yeah.
It really is at the end of the day. If he was a 6'4", 6'5" player, Bryce Young probably be one of the highest recruited players I've ever seen in my life. He totally would be. He'd be a Joe Burrow-esque prospect in a second. But that's what's crazy, is that the knock on him is for something he can't control. Meanwhile, all the other QBs with the stuff they literally can control, no one seems to care about with all the red flags. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is very weird. But yeah, no, let's move on to the Trey Lance thing. So I was thinking about this a lot today. Day. Yeah, it's depending on your opinion of Trey Lance. Like,
is it our victory lap time?
Here's my opinion on it, because I listen. I think he needs a change of scenery, but it's like a double-edged sword, right? Because like you move up, you trade all that to get him to move up to number 3. Here's my thing: you trade him away, okay? He becomes a stud, and Brock Purdy just doesn't keep up what he has been doing. that's a fireable.
I was gonna say it's means to literally restart the whole regime,
You have
like
to be
literally being
fired.
like Shanny and Lynch have got to go, and because that's what's crazy is no Niners fan wants that shit. They don't, but like,
No.
but again, you are a product of decisions you make, and if that's what ended up happening,
Yeah.
it would literally be no way they could redeem themselves. It's just not possible.
I just don't know how you get past that. So like, what do you think? Where do you think he can go?
All right, so okay.
I've said this multiple times, but I think the Vikings are like a perfect landing spot for him.
That would be the perfect landing spot.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the perfect one. Because, okay, so here, how I look at it is we know, like Tyler always used to say, we know that he basically has this minimal experience at the position you could have to be a professional. I mean, literally, actually, that's almost an understatement. He literally has the minimal experience you could ever, any pro quarterback's going to have playing pro QB. I mean, really. But why is he in that position? He's incredibly uber athletic, and he made it count when he had the opportunities he had. He was very talented and it showed. So obviously people want to take a risk on him. But again, he went to the Niners, and we were saying then the Niners was the perfect situation for him because for a lot of reasons. The running QB system where he makes it work with mobile QBs. You know, Shanny's going to make it work with very few simple plays. Very one read, two read, three read at most. Make it quick, easy for him because he's still transitioning into playing pro QB. That's why I think really throws a fork into the whole, or whatever they say. It throws a whatever. I'm messing up the thing.
A fork in the road, yeah.
Yeah, fork in the road. Because it's like he now isn't going to be able to really have that leverage of his coach extremely simplifying the game of offense. Shanny was the one guy that was going to do that for him. So it's kind of like how I see it now is if he has to be traded, the Niners I feel like are at the advantage of they probably would be the one winning the trade because I do think Brock is probably going to keep developing into a very solid player where he could win them games, get him to a Super Bowl kind of player. And then I could see Trey, if he goes to a bad system, it doesn't work for him. I could see him totally, I don't want to say busting out, but with the injury history now and everything, I mean, I could see him kind of being an afterthought in a couple years where you're like, wow, yeah, Trey Lance was really overdrafted. That's why you don't draft the guy that's only played,
that's
how
my
many
concern
games
with Richardson, though.
But
I know Richardson has more experience, but it's just
my big difference between the two of them, though, as of right now, is just that Rich is there's not really any injury concern, and he is fair. Just not because Trey Lance was really athletic, but Rich is like a different. If Trey Lance is an A tier of athleticism, Rich is an S tier of athleticism. You know what I mean? Where it's like at the least, you really this almost I guess.
It's like elite traits you can't pass up on.
Yeah, at the least, because again, this is worst case scenario, but it's just how I look at it. At worst case scenario, Rich is so damn talented, you actually could start playing him in a different position. You know, like those guys that start playing receiver or whatever else because they aren't working at a QB.
Yeah.
With Trey Lance, there's not even that floor, I don't think. Trey Lance, if he doesn't work out, he's just not going to work out anywhere kind of thing. Like,
yeah, I could see. I would like the Falcons too. I think the Falcons could be a very good spot for him, especially with the weapons they have and like Art Smith and like it being a predominantly running offense. Like, you could let him develop for quite a while.
Relatively simple offense too, like QB friendly offense.
Yeah.
That would be that, and the Vikings have got to be the two premier spots. I feel like.
Yeah, I don't know where else he'd go.
Because if like so you're saying like if he went to Tennessee, that would be like where his career would go to die. Like for example, if he's gonna have to carry the entire load, that's kind of like the difference. If he's gonna go somewhere where the load is helping boost him, it'll be great. But if he's going where he's gonna have to carry the load, it's just not gonna work.
Yeah, it's not.
Kind of like CJ Stroud, but obviously not the same type of.
Yeah, Stroud has to go to like a system that he can like complement. He can't be the system.
No, exactly. Same as Geno.
So Tua talked about retiring. It was like at a press conference or whatever, and like it was interesting to hear that, but like as like a fan and like watching him and like how he played, did you ever consider him even like thinking about retirement? Like I always thought it could be like a thought in the back of his mind, like just from like everyone putting it into his head, but I don't think I ever truly considered that he would like actually retire.
No, well, so no, to your point, not at all. But then the more, especially today, the more I sit here and think about it, he could cash in on that insurance policy. And again, I'm going to be honest with you. From my point of view, Dolphins fans don't want to hear this. I don't want to be saying this. This shit hurts me to even say. But the truth is, if I was him, are you kidding me? I would have retired basically the second that I found out that I had however many concussions in that short of time. I mean, because at the end of the day, I'm big on the whole thing. and this is kind of an unpopular take per se, especially with the world nowadays. But, everyone has different viewpoints. Everyone has different ways they look at things. I'm big on the whole thing that things, for whatever reason, even though a lot of times you can't even grasp it in the moment, like things you can't grasp, things you will never understand, but things are happening for a reason. And I guess in Tua's case, I almost kind of look at it that it's almost like some way, somehow it's kind of like a message that like maybe you have somewhere else to like a different purpose than this, because when that is very serious stuff that's happening. This is not like some joke. And again, when you take a sample size of all the players in the league that get hit on a consistent basis, running backs, receivers, guys that are taking head-to-head hits every game that aren't reacting the way he's reacting and having the same problems he's having, right? You know what I mean? Where it's kind of like, and he's a quarterback, he's not taking even as many hits as other position groups. When you're as young as he is, taking hits the way he is and reacting with having the serious problems he's having after the hits, I take it as a sign that at the least my body isn't going to be able to do this long term, right? Like at the least that's what it's trying to tell you.
Yeah.
So that's right. And again, that hurts me to say. I don't want to be saying that. It's terrible to say, but I do think especially it's serious stuff, because the last thing I would want to be is one of these people. No, don't retire. You have money to make, yada, 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 all this superficial stuff that really doesn't matter at the end of the day. That doesn't, all the extra stuff that people are putting in your head. And then you get one more concussion and things are never the same for you. I would much rather be on the side of the spectrum that you have to take care of yourself, and literally just taking care of yourself is the most important thing, than on the side of the spectrum of, oh, you're a professional. This is what you deal with, et cetera, et cetera. Because that's a much more dangerous side. I'm on the side of Tua should be protecting himself. Tua, obviously, I trust what he's going to do. I trust that if he's going to keep playing, that it's the right thing for him. But from my perspective, bro, I personally would not be going back in there. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I don't care about the money that I haven't made. All the things will figure themselves out as far as that's concerned. Coaching, media gig, whatever. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying. It's definitely like it's a scary thing, especially with you see everything with like CTE, and like having all those concussions. Like my number one thing is as a franchise at that point is like, if this guy's gonna do that, you need to protect him. And I'm not saying it's all like the offensive line's fault and all that stuff like that, but it's just like kind of like, remember when Mahomes lost the Super Bowl and their first thing was like, we need to get a line.
Right.
Like Andrew Luck retired because he was getting hit like so much. Like the quarterback position is so important, but it's also so crucial that like that's why like the offensive line is so important, because when you build like it's hard to say, like they always say build from the trenches, but like you have to build, in my opinion, you have to build your offensive line first.
Yeah.
Like your offensive line has to be the number one like area of like focus on your team when you're building like a Super Bowl
truly elite
team.
When franchises go through truly elite stretches, that's the one position group that no one is ever going to question. I mean, think about it. When the Steelers went through their elite times, Patriots going through elite times, when the Packers were really good the Packers still, were until A-Rod's leaving. But you get my point. That is never the group in question. Why? It's obvious, like you're saying, because that is the most important group. It just is.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. When you watch football for a long period of time, it just is what it is. The O-line is what holds together your most important asset.
Yeah.
Therefore, it makes them the second most important asset.
Yeah. So, yeah, I have a question for you. So, let's say Will Anderson goes to the Texans. Do you think Tyree Wilson goes first, or do you think Jalen Carter goes first after?
Well, again, so this isn't about what I would do. This is about what I think. I'm not going to lie. I can see a lot of teams being really concerned about Jalen Carter, but I don't know if I can see a lot of teams feeling like Tyree is worth, per se, reaching on over him. Because, again, with Jalen, it's one of those things where if he can even just be, I'm trying to think of the right word here, but because I think he's going to be a good player, good citizen, all that. But in terms of if he's even just half, paying it what's the word here, I guess? I'm struggling to come up with the vocabulary, but it's even if he's just, I'm not having the vocab, bro. My vocab's slacking. But the point is if he's just not a total jackass, right? Because everyone has this impression that, he's going to be so bad off, all this, he's going to be so bad off the field. Even if he's just where, what I'm saying, where I don't think he's going to be like that at all. But the point is he is so talented himself. If he's just showing up to work every day and he's not on bullshit, there is literally no chance that he's not going to be an elite prospect. Whereas on the other hand, Tyree, I feel good about. There's a lot of things we like about him, but there's also some things we don't like about certain measurements, yada, yada, yada. So I don't know. I just feel like Jalen's the more foolproof guy for sure. You know me, I'm taking Jalen 10 out of 10 times. I can certainly see some GMs, though, that are much more personality trait driven, being like, hey, I know what I'm getting with Tyree as far as that's concerned, and I'm going to take that plus his long ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel you. I feel like Wilson's like stock has gone up the last like week or so. That's the craziest thing is like how much these players' stocks rise and fall within like the last like month before the draft. Like it's truly crazy how like players can like rise and fall by so much. Like someone, I can't remember who said it, but it was pretty much along the lines of like, this is the only time of the year where like players get so much better when they're not playing.
No, well, I'll use last year's example. Again, not that I didn't like him. He was a top 10 prospect for me. But Trayvon Walker going number 1 overall. I mean,
that
again,
was so...
I'm sure Jags fans, don't hate it or whatever. But let's be honest here, Jags fans. Come on.
Aiden Hutchinson?
Was he the guy number 1? No, but here's what happened. What happens, it always happens, is you get everybody talking and they're hyped. Like we're saying, everyone's hyped. They're really excited for the draft. So what's happened? People start going through, say, too many hypotheticals. People start going through things that don't even really matter. You start overthinking things that don't matter. You start... and because people always say, like every smart GM I like listening to always says, tape has got to be first. Tape is first by a long shot, and then measurables are second. Measurables are very important, but you know what you're getting at the end of the day from what you're seeing on the tape. If the measurables can coincide with the super high ceiling, then boom, then you got a first round prospect, right? That's the whole thing. But at the least, even if someone doesn't have desirable measurables, it's like the guys we see every year that go 4th, 5th, 6th round that end up going in the league and going crazy. It's because that's why they got drafted. You at least knew what you're getting as far as what I'm going to see when they're playing. Even if they don't hit a ceiling, I know what the floor of what I'm going to get, right? That's kind of the thing, like in this case. So I don't know, but.
So what is your we could kind of cap it off here because there's really not much to talk about that hasn't already been talked about for the last 2 months. I feel like we did the mock draft and we kind of not much has changed. There's been some risers and fallers, but nothing too crazy. So I guess what is kind of your biggest okay, so first off, we're going to the draft. So I'm super excited to go see it because I think
we haven't even told the viewers yet, but we got some content coming for y'all. Got some draft live coming.
Yeah,
Stay tuned.
We're hyped, but I think it's I think the biggest reason I'm excited is because this year truly feels unpredictable. After the first pick, you truly don't know how the first round's going to go.
Everything about the draft is confusing.
Everything.
It never is like that.
I've heard it's just from everything I've been listening to is obviously they say this every year, but there's only about 10 to 15 first round grades that teams have on these guys. But what they're saying is what I was hearing, at least from PFF and this NFL Stock Exchange podcast, is they were saying that the draft is really deep. So you can have second round grades going deeper into the third round, which I think is awesome. But what is kind of the thing that you're most looking forward to from the draft, and kind of one thing that you think could be the most surprising, just to end the pod?
All right, so the thing I think could be most surprising. Just give me a minute to think here. I'll tell you what, because I've been thinking about this a lot. What I think is going to be surprising is because I don't know if it's going to happen like this, but I could totally see a very high contender, per se, trading up.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, what's going on? What's happened? Bijan Robinson. Boom.
Yeah.
Because, again, I think he's one of those guys where even we had him at when me and Connor did our mock last week. Again, that's also the result of when people are trading off picks. It makes it a lot harder. You don't necessarily some things, but Bijan falling to 30, that's not going to happen because that's just too far. Somebody at the to my point, once he falls past a certain point, there's going to be a team that's ready that already should have won the Super Bowl. It's going to be man, get that guy on my roster. Whatever you got to do, find a way to get me up there. I don't care about losing capital that doesn't affect us this year.
Yeah.
Get me up there. Let's get a shot with the future All-Pro running back. That's going to be something really interesting because I think a lot of people have mocked really weird spots. I think it's going to be either the Bengals, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Eagles. Someone's going to trade up that already thinks that they have a shot to win the Super Bowl. I don't think someone's just going to. We saw it went with all the other running back prospects that get selected that are their ceiling's so high that goes to a team that isn't ready to compete. It just doesn't work. You waste an asset. It's just not good for anybody.
Yeah, if he doesn't go to like the Falcons at 8 or like the Eagles at 10, I don't think he really gets. There's not another chance he gets taken until like 21 to the Chargers, in my opinion. So I don't think he'll go to the Chargers, which would be kind of crazy, and like that means Eckler's gone. But I mean, if he doesn't get taken by 10 to the Eagles, he's gonna fall to the 20s. That's a good point. I like that. I think the biggest thing too in this draft is I don't necessarily think that all these players, because like when you see these mocks, like a lot of these players get mocked to the same place. The one thing I will say about this draft is I truly feel like a lot of players are gonna go not to places you wouldn't expect, but like I think a lot of people have an idea of how this draft's going to go, and it's like I just have a feeling that it's not. Like I have a feeling this draft is going to be truly like random. Random.
Like, and I could say like a player, so like to that point, random. So someone else I could see where they could go way earlier than everyone thinks. Because again, he's been a very highly rated prospect for so long, but the injury history, all those things about him that are concerning.
Yeah.
I think a guy I could see really like where you're like, what? Like I'm trying to think of what range you could see him in. Maybe anywhere from like 12 to 8 or 7, but like Jackson Smith and Jigba, where teams are just like, give me him. Like everyone can't talk, everyone who there's all pros that have been playing with him and stuff that have already come in the league that are balling, like they can't just be saying this stuff for no reason.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna take my shot on that talent, like with what I know that I would have had if I drafted him last year.
The other guy, the other group is the tight end group. The tight end group is really up in the air.
I got Kincaid.
Yeah, you got Kincaid, you have Mayer, you have Laporta. Who is the Zach Kuntz? Like, I don't think he'll go first round. But
yeah, no.
The tight end class is so strong, but like all these guys have like different strengths and weaknesses that it's like you truly don't know like where these guys are going to go. But I think this draft is going to be a great one. I'm super, super excited because, like I said, you have those teams like the Raiders and the Seahawks that are just kind of wild cards.
No, yeah. I think this is, like you said, there's never been a weirder year that I've been paying attention to the draft because I haven't actually been really paying attention to the draft for anything more than like 6-7 years now, like really into it. So yeah, where it's like, I mean, I've never been seeing it like this. I'll tell you that.
But awesome. That's all I had.
No, yeah, that's about all I had, but hopefully you guys had a lot of fun. Like I said, I think we hit on the point. Just a lot of fun draft stuff going on, draft coming up in 2 weeks. We're excited. We're going to have a lot of content for you guys live. Hopefully you enjoyed tuning in, man. Thanks so much for, spending, whether it was your morning, evening, or whatever. Thanks for spending that time with us.